We are live, ladies and gentlemen, back again with legendary strength coach Dan John, and I just heard some news that Dan John has some news. So, if you don't mind, let's hear the
Oh,
news,
actually,
Dan. Get
actually,
right into it.
there's a lot of news, but it's hard to explain which one's the biggest. I'm just
Wow.
so excited. So number one, uh, we had some issues with our internets, and so I did something brilliant. First off, I complained to Utopia Fiber, which is worthless, and then I talked to the guy at Sumo Utopia Internet, then Sumo Fiber, and they said they fixed everything on their end because Utopia won't do anything. And then I went to it's a little convenience store here in town called Costco,
Yep.
and I bought a new router. And so I have a router here, and then there's a router on the main floor, and then there's a router on the upstairs. And so my speed went from 60 mbs to 260
To a
mbs.
billion, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm very excited. I hope the clarity is better. I hope I'm even smarter, folks. The next thing is I sent the book Tools of Coaching in. I've been working on it. I've been working on it for a couple of years. It's one of those things where actually a long time, a long time. I think I started this 10 years ago. Geez, it's a compilation of intervention, can you go, and now what? And I put it in one piece, added some new stuff. And so that'll be out pretty soon. And
it's fantastic. It's awesome. Congrats, Dan. That's great.
And training is really going well. And it was just the thought I had. I do this thing in the morning. It's called take a shower. I shower, shave, and do all that. And gosh, I was thinking about my strength and about. So yesterday I inclined 205 for a handful. And I was just thinking, how. I've been lifting weights since 1965, and it's kind of interesting to watch the slow decline in my strength. Because I have the journals, so I can look back and, I mean, I'm not, folks, I'm not complaining. It's inevitable, but it was just one of those thoughts. But the thing is, 3 days a week, I'm still in there swinging away, 10,000, 15,000 steps a day.
Not only that, but I mean, it's not just relative to where you were before, but I mean, I don't see a whole lot of gym bros in my YMCA even doing those numbers who are, but a mere fraction of the age, right?
So. Yeah, but it was just one of and there's no complaints, gentle listeners or Patrick. It's just one of those funny things where, it was just like this weird little loop that hit my head. It's like, oh yeah, look, I got to get ready for Pat. Talk about training, and my thought went, but I got to tell you, lifting weights 3 days a week, getting those daily steps in, watching the calories, it just makes me sleep better, and that makes me just a much happier. I think I am more productive in the last 3 or 4 years. Of course, I don't have those strange pressures I had 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah,
there's real value, folks, in training at the right amount and intensity and so but I would say it's not just the training, the hard, don't just get yourself in shape for a bikini,
right?
Get yourself, just keep going at it,
I think there's a good theme there is that we sometimes talk about training with the seasons, but there's also just, seasons of training itself. And I think that, especially for me right now, my season of training is I'm not trying to push any, major personal records in lifting or anything like that. For me, fitness is this sort of, I'm not trying to be weak, but it's like this general background support system, for everything else. So for me, I want to train in a way where I can feel like I'm consistently, if not making progress, at least maintaining what I consider an interesting and respectable amount of fitness, while at the same time, like I think what you're hitting at, Dan, is that there's obvious trade-offs. You want to be productive in other areas of life. The gym just can't be your life. And I'm not just talking about the hours in the gym, but I mean, if you're training with such intensity and ferocity that you're just absolutely crushed. I know that's the case for me. And I've said before, if at my level of intensity, if I go from 3 to 4 days per week, man, I'm just shot, like my energy, my productivity, my focus, my level of fatigue is just significantly different once I just cross that sort of volume threshold of adding one more day. Will I make more physical progress that one more day? Yeah, but is it really worth the trade-offs to me in other areas of life right now? Obviously not, right? So I don't know, maybe speak a little bit.
There's the thing I kind of discovered too. Did I really make better progress? Now listen, if you're going to do something like an easy strength, or you're an Olympic lifter, or you're an athlete, yeah, you got to get those. You got to get those extra sessions for the technique and the adaptation. But for basic things, most of us want fat loss, hypertrophy, lean body mass, mobility work. Sometimes the right dose it's dosage. It's the right dose, and
it is interesting to see, because we've all had, well, don't want to talk for all the audience, but I know a lot of us have had those seasons where the gym was our life. The most important thing was the progress we made there. And, cool things happened. But then it's interesting to see, and I don't ever have a perfect answer on this, of how much of that can be maintained, right? For less. Now, and that's a different question than how much of that could have been gained in the first place for less. And like I said, I don't have a perfect answer for that, but I look back at my training and I'm thinking, oh yeah, there's a lot of excess there in the younger years that was just clutter. That's been a theme of ours before, just stuff that just weeds that grow in the fitness garden that don't need to be there. So that's always interesting too. And I've certainly, throughout the years come to see that, yeah, you can't get away with very little. At least I can't. But you can get away with a lot less in most cases. Yeah.
Well, and you did hit on something. You said several times younger, but I've had this kind of, I don't really have a great explanation. I'll do my best. Okay. So humans are, was it Bayesian economic? So there's outliers. There's most of us in the middle, it's the old thing. If
Keynesian economics.
If I said two people were walking down the street and their height was 12 feet, most of us would think their combined height was 12, would think 6'6". There would be a chance in your life there would be a 5-footer and a 7-footer, but it'd be kind of rare to have an 8-footer and a 4-footer also, right? So my thought has been this for a long time, is that the first year you lift, there are going to be people who gain from 0 to 10 pounds, and there's going to be the people who gain 50. I think most people are in that 20, 30, 40 pound range. Now, I was a bit of an outlier. I put on 40 pounds in 4 months with Dick Nottmer. The next year, those numbers show up, but it's going to be 5 and 25 for the outliers, 20 pounds for for most of us. The third year, it's going to be 5, 10 pounds, barely discernible.
Yep.
Very little. And the fourth year, I'm barely, for those of you watching, I'll do, it's going to be like, there's your improvement, your fourth year. It's going to be barely nudging, And after
and that's assuming that you're doing things generally right? Right.
Well, yeah. So, after 4 or 5 years, now it doesn't mean you will get stronger, no question about, and you'll probably get better on the platform if you're a competitor. But you kind of those freebies. Now, if you take anabolics and you choose not to have play with your grandkids, I'm fine with that. But for those of us who are natural, that's you're going to have that big first year hit if you train well.
Yeah.
That solid second year, there's still progress third year, and then the fourth year, you're kind of chasing. You're chasing small pieces of paper. I mean, in improvement.
Yeah. So this is great. No, finish your thought, and I'll chime in.
No, go ahead. Chime in, baby.
No, I was just going to say that this could be a helpful diagnostic too, because what Dan's talking about is that, realistically, it's something like 40-ish pounds of lean muscle, not just weight. You can gain more than 40 pounds of weight, right? But 40-ish pounds of lean muscle is the generally, established broad estimate of how much, you could gain over a lifetime naturally, right?
I mean, there'll be that guy.
but it doesn't have to be,
Yeah.
But it's generally something like this, maybe 15 to 20 pounds the first year, 10 the second, 3 to 4, and then maybe 2 pounds by year. But the key I wanted to highlight with you, Dan, is like, that's if you're doing things right. If you're 10 years down the line and you've only gained 5 to 10, something's been going wrong, right? Yeah. So you should see that, like, if you're on year 4 or 5 and you're only gaining the 2 pounds, but you've gained a lot before that, that's actually a good sign that you've probably been pretty doing. You might have some excess there, you've been doing more than you need, but at least you've been doing the right things. And I want you to go back to the point you were making, but life is not always what Instagram makes it seem. There are realistic, reasonable limits. Dan's a much bigger guy than I am, so the amount he can gain obviously will be more than what I can gain too. So you got to just take in those factors of how much you can just realistically, naturally gain from the weight room to begin with over a lifetime, and what that should look like, year by year, given realistic considerations. So yeah, if you're only 5 to 10 pounds up 10 years after training, you got to ask yourself what you've been doing, right?
Yeah.
But if you're frustrated at year 4 because you've only gained a few pounds, but you gained 15,
3 and 4,
but you gained a lot more years 1, 2, 3, and 4. You're actually doing pretty good, realistically speaking. So I just wanted to highlight those points, because I think it's always about trying to make people have not the totally false perspectives and expectations that social media portrays. Yeah.
And for me, when I first met, and Schnicksley is asking about 20 kilos. I put on 19 kilos in 4 months, but I was 17 years old. I had just finished football, wrestling, track and field, summer soccer and basketball, went to Skyline College, met Dick Notmeyer. All I had really been doing is kind of a power bodybuilding thing. He got me Olympic lifting. My body loved it. Mm-hmm. Now, I put on those 40 pounds, and everyone thought I would be, the next year. I mean, as a freshman, I weighed 202, sophomore, 218. Yeah, junior, I was about 226, and as a senior, I was 231, 105 kilos. And I felt great, And the other thing too, folks, there are friends like my buddy Crazy Jerry who really tried to lift weights hard. God bless him, he also smoked heavily, but he could train and do all the stuff all you're doing. And if he put on 1.5 pounds, it was substantial.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure there's outliers. I've heard Bill Pearl once told Dick Notmeyer that all he needed to do was go like this, he would gain muscle.
Yeah, you have what they call excellent responders and poor responders, right? So assuming you're not one of those outliers, something in that general range you're talking about is not entirely.
Yeah, and Walt mentions about being woefully under protein, and I think that's that's a good point too. I mean, say like you discovered weightlifting at age 19, and you and your frat boy friends go to the weight room, and you do a program with 7 variations of curls and bench press, and that's it. And then 2, 3, 4 years later, you're starting a business, and there's a gym near your house, and they put you on a high protein diet, and you could, even though you made some progress here with the crappy program at 19, you could make better progress at 23, 24. Yeah, I'm talking about years of age.
Right.
Because now you're on better foods, better proteins, less beer and bullshit.
Right.
Yeah. So it is. I guess I got to be careful here, because I'm so stuck in the performance mindset that sometimes I forget reality and real people. Yeah.
No, that's good. I love Walt's example here too. He says, for years I was woefully under protein. If you're not feeding your muscles, you just get on a never-ending loop of ripping off the front porch to build the back porch. Yeah, good illustration. I mean, look, I like that. You need to impose demands on your body, but you need to give your body the material to actually build too. So the protein and calorie side is absolutely essential.
Yeah.
And for some guys, eating a lot isn't a big problem. I've told you guys many times that, like, for me, eating enough is one of the most. It's actually pretty easy for me to undereat and to fast. And I know for a lot of people that's the opposite problem they have. For me, the difficulty is if I'm trying to really get stronger, add muscle, making sure that I'm tracking, because my general, if I just go by how I feel or intuition, I'm always under. I'm always low.
Yeah. And you know, I'll be honest too. I kind of wish. So I get the Tufts newsletter. That's it's a nice little. I think they charge me $10 a month or something like that, or $10 a year. And I also get the AARP, the retired person, and they both are using that standard number of 0.82 grams per pound of body weight. And I don't know the kilo conversion is, and I apologize. But one thing when I started looking at my protein intake with that, I wouldn't say it's a lower number, and then I just did the math. It really opened up the options I could eat with everything else, because I was so protein forward all my life. Walt, I'm not disagreeing with you, Walt. I'm just saying that you can be under proteined and then you can just take a lot. And honestly, I just finished that Oprah Winfrey book a week or so ago, Enough, which I had enough of it when I finished. But there is a point in there about how most Americans hyper overconsumed calories, but we don't put on the amount of weight that Americans eat too many calories. But and most men eat about 1,000 calories too many. So by the numbers, every 3.5 days, everyone in the audience should be putting on a pound. But it doesn't happen because everything's a lot more. There's a lot more going on in the human body than just calories in, calories out.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's a good starting spot, a very good one. The reason I'm rambling on this is that, if you dial in your calorie numbers and you get the amount of protein you're supposed to have, I have found that, like, for example, I can fast up to 16 hours a day and still easily get my protein because I'm aware of the number I need to get. I can fast 16 hours, 18 hours a day and still get my calories in because I can kind of play with the dials a little bit, And I think one of the mistakes, at least I made in my life, I don't know. I had the intellectual capacity to do it, but I don't know if I was just listening to so many voices in the air that I think I just said, more is better. And it wasn't. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. No, good. All right. Well, realistic strength and muscle gain. There you have it. I think that was, I found it illuminating, but hopefully the audience does as well. All right, let's take a few questions here. Rick says, my daughter is in Alaska working at a fish factory, standing in place all day. There's a small gym where she's staying. Any thoughts on a simple program that she can do after work? Maybe just easy strength and walking. All right, the program for the Alaska fish factory worker, Dan, what do you recommend?
Well, like if she's staying around all day, walking is, you just nailed it, because when you sit at a desk or you staying around all day, walking is it's also good for the brain.
Yes.
When in doubt with females, with women, I have them do overhead presses. That is my, if all you can do is this, it would be overhead press for most women, and any glute work. So that's either, if she can goblet squat, front squat, work the glutes, hip raises, hip thrusts. A lot of women like the lunge family, the step up family, the Bulgarian split squat family, any of those. But overhead press, glutes, walk. There's your trifecta of perfection.
Good. Thank you for that question, dear Sir Rick. Steven has a question. He says currently he's working through the 10K swing challenge, but I'm thinking about the program.
Why would you do that?
Think about program after. He mentions my bare flinimum or program flinimum. I always like those Flynn puns. Do you have a recommendation? It always depends on the goal, right, Dan? But so Steve, maybe give us a little context of what you're hoping to achieve this year. But Dan, in general, the 10K swing challenge is your diabolical creation. What do you have any general recommendations of what people do once they're finished that challenge?
Yeah, well, over on my YouTube, in my books, I've got the perfect workout. We've talked about it here before. So you've been doing so much singles, just that one motion, and even if you mix it with other things, The reason I like the half kneeling press, the hang, the goblet squat, the overhead squat, the suitcase carry, the hip thrust, really no swings at all. I mean, I got bored of them. But any exercise combinations that get a little bit of mobility and hypertrophy. If you just want to do an old school 3-day a week program, it's funny, I didn't plan this, but I was looking at this earlier today. This is Harry, the Bosco system, those classic workouts. This is the one, I think I've showed you these before, Patrick. These are the posters that are in my bathroom over here. Mm-hmm. I've given a tour of my bathroom in the past, haven't I?
You have, yes.
Am I the only guest who ever gives a tour of his bathroom?
And the only one I would want to, right?
But any plan that covers the essentials of push, pull, hinge, squat, loaded carry. Now, when I said hinge, I would move away personally from a swing just for a few weeks and maybe do something. If all you have is kettlebell, good old-fashioned kettlebell deadlifts or Bulgarian goat bag swings or whatever, but just, be reasonable and enjoy. I would say at least 2 weeks, that kind of general workout, 3 days a week, and try to move a little bit on your, with your mobility. And I would suggest not swinging, because last time I did it, oh my God. Well, I don't know if that was the last time, but the time I had COVID and Nate and I would do it together. And it was Nate, shout out. Thank you, Nate Huey. I think we did it more for my mental health than my physical, but I would do the 500 swings. We would do it on Instagram Live and recorded it. And we would finish, and I would pass out on the couch for 2 or 3 hours. Yeah. But yeah, I did it, Yeah.
There's another kind of point in that. I like you said, no swings for a while. That might sound like crazy, the kettlebell swing, such an awesome exercise, but it's another thing we've talked about before, and I think it's worth revisiting just briefly, is that and this is well established, after you've pushed something for a while with a lot of intensity, you could stand to make better progress by stepping away from that thing almost entirely than continuing to do it at all. And the gym is a great example, but the one that I always am continually reminded by on this is music. And the interesting thing is, it's not just singular, but it's also like systemic. So for example, you push something in music, you got this really hard compositional piece or passage, and you might work hard for months and months and months. Often it isn't until I step away, maybe for a couple of weeks, even a few months, and come back, that a certain, neural processing or learning has taken place, that it then just sort of snaps together. I've seen this happen a million times. Whereas if you just keep pushing, it just doesn't connect, right? Even just recently with the band, we've been working on some hard pieces. We worked really hard. We stepped away for a little bit. We came back and they clicked. So it worked like on the whole, not just individual. Now I think the whole worked because each of us individually had that phenomena. But we sat there, looked at each other like, that's amazing. Like, we haven't worked this piece in like a couple of weeks, and we took a break. We came back. It sounds better than ever. And this is, well established. It's maybe not like as precise as, like, can't say exactly when to do it or whatever, but there's these, phenomena of, it's called the incubation effect. That's what it's on the cognitive side. It's called the incubation effect.
Yeah.
And neural consolidation and stuff like that. But it just reminded me, so just even worth just stepping away, because you've been working swings so intensely for a while there that even just for the sake, not just of balance, but even just that exercise and that pattern itself could stand to benefit from just, stepping back for a couple of weeks from that movement entirely. And then when you come back to it, you might even notice you feel a bit stronger, a bit snappier, so on. Yeah. Dan, I'm sure you've experienced this before, perhaps many times.
Yeah. I like the phrase incubation. I also think that when you get away from something, you literally start chopping off the inessential things. I would also add one small thing. We used to call it the senior summer. You'd have a kid in high school football for 3 years, and he would be the kid. The example I always use is a kid who walked up to me one time. He was an outside linebacker in the system we used. He was called the Willie. And he starts explaining to me about how he would, he never got it right ever. All of a sudden, just in the hallway, he starts talking about what to do against a slot and versus a pro set. and he understood everything. And he hadn't played football in 5 months, but by not playing football, the back of his head figured out, chopped off all the, inessential, lack of essential things. Yeah, seen it. And that's Tommy Kona's great insight about mixing Olympic lifting with bodybuilding, which I wish I would have done my whole career.
Yeah, that's part of that consolidation. Is it just a lot of consistent effort also tends to introduce a lot of noise. So stepping back helps to just sort of, even beneath the surface,
they've studied
remove that noise, right? Yeah,
memos from 1940 where it's the number of times that the memo would come out that the Japanese are about to attack Pearl Harbor. So there's this thing. In fact, my dad was in Pearl Harbor. It's a long story. Move on. But everybody, he said, everybody knew the Japanese were going to attack. But the problem is, if you hear the Japanese are going to attack Pearl Harbor every single day for a year and a half, pretty soon, it's just noise.
Yeah.
Even though it's something, it's just, you hear it so many times. Anybody who's ever been in an administrative role, you're constantly hearing things, but sometimes it's just noise. And that's why going on a vacation sometime, if you have a pressure job, a good vacation, you come back and you have such clarity on things because you're not getting that.
Yeah. That's the sort of idea, is that when you have this sort of incubation period, the training, the intensity, that gives you a lot of testing of possibilities, but something about the resting is what helps you kind of discern the winners and discard the rest. Right. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. Think about that, gentle listeners.
Well, and whenever someone goes in, someone's been overtrained. Let's go. People think that you and I are both minimalists, and I'll read that online sometimes, and it's like, that's a bunch of horse crap, because I'm not. However, I love minimalist programs because after I do a lot for a while, I think it's the same. I think we're talking about the same thing. And then you toss out all those extra things, from the beginning, I said, if Pavel's book, The Power of the People, was bench press and rack deadlift, there'd never have been another book in our field. We would be done because everybody loves those. Mm-hmm. But if you go to a program that's incline bench press, chin up, a front squat. That's it. That's all you're going to do for 3 months. You'll make some of the best progress of your life with those big hitters. Military press, chin up, front squat. You'll make great progress. And then you'll wake up one day and go, I am so bored. And then you'll start adding the sprinkles and the dots and the cinnamon. Yeah.
Let's hit this real quick before we close out here. Brigu says, helped his best friend train for her first pull-up and was surprised to see it helped her absolutely crush the ab wheel. Is this what you would call the what the heck effect of the pull-up, he wants to know?
Well, when I have someone who doesn't know how to do, I don't know if I'll ever teach this again, but in the RKC, we had that ab section, which I actually liked.
Me too.
And you'll find that the ab wheel is a great teaching device for someone who cannot do a pull-up. And it'd be interesting because Brigo, am I right? He's saying the opposite thing?
He's saying the pull-up helps with the ab wheel, yeah.
Teaches the ab wheel. Yeah. So, I like the word anterior chain for everything here. And one of the things about the pull-up is it's weirdly an anterior chain trainer if you decide to make it one. That's where you hook your feet. I'm doing it right now. That's funny. I'm talking about it. I'm doing it. So I just hook my ankles around. I'm squeezing my knees together. I'm getting in that gymnast position, this brace position, and then I do a pull-up. Well, that's also what you do in the ab wheel. Mm-hmm. So ab wheels are a great training system to help someone do a pull-up. Much of the benefits that I get out of chin-ups carry really well over into my ab. I can show you my abs. The only problem is, gentle listeners, you need to sign waivers.
Yeah.
We just can't allow I mean, the swooning.
Fainting,
you
swooning.
cannot drive and look at my abs because I would worry what would happen at the wheel.
Dan, what are you working on this week? Any? Well, you're finishing up the book, which is great. Anything else? You gonna start another one right away, or what?
I got a fun week with the inner circle. Next week we start talking about the future. You know, what are you going to be like in 2 decades? You know, 88, 89. You know, I have to rethink that. You know, every year, I get a little more frightened when I do this 2-decade assignment. You know, what am I going to be like in 2 decades? You know, Fitz just died a week ago at 89. I go, that's. So I'm working on that. Training's going really well. Lots of walking. Really, I would say, for whatever reason, I'm kind of a quiet time. You know, once I finish a book, sometimes I just feel like, you know, oh, let's go. I'm gonna go, you know, paint the car. I'm gonna go change the, you know, I don't know, swap out all the battery. You know, I start seeking, you know, more to-dos. Well, that's kind of why I put in the new high-speed internet yesterday, because I had time, you know. So there, I'm excited. How about you, Pat? Anything in
Nothing crazy new or too exciting that's worth taking up any extra time over, but things are going well. Still working on, you know, a lot of different projects, but yeah, all good, Dan, all good. So
good to hear.
Good.
And I love our meetings. I know you got to bounce, but I sure like our Tuesdays together.
Likewise.
With Patrick.
Indeed. And thank you to the gentle listeners for the questions. Thank you, Dan, for the great wisdom. Fun one today. Think about the incubation period. In fact, in the comments after, let us know. Has there been an area of your life where you realized stepping away from it for a while brought definite progress, perhaps a surprising amount of progress, and you returned? I'm sure you can think of some. Share it with us after the show. Thank you all. Goodbye.